Marcus Aurelius, The Meditations. Book 1. Concerning Himself. 1. From my grandfather Varus I learned good morals and the government of my temper. 2. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character. 3. From my mother, piety and beneficence and abstinence, not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts. And further, simplicity in my way of living, far removed from the habits of the rich. 4. From my great-grandfather not to have frequented public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know that on such things a man should spend liberally. 5. From my tutor to endure freedom of speech, and to have become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer, first of Bacchius, then of Tandasis and Marcianus, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and a skin and whatever else of the Greek discipline. 6. From Rusticus I received the impression that my character required improvement and discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray to sophistic emulation, nor to write on speculative matters, nor to deliver little hortatory orations, nor to show myself off as a man who practices much discipline or does benevolent acts for display, and to abstain from rhetoric, poetry, and fine writing, and not to walk about in the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do other things of the kind, and to write my letters simply like the letter which he wrote to my mother from Sinuessa, and to be easily reconciled to those who have transgressed and offended me as soon as they show a readiness to be reconciled, and to read carefully, and not to be satisfied with a superficial understanding of a book, and not hastily to give my assent to those who talk overmuch, and I am indebted to him for my acquaintance with the discourses of Epictetus. 7. From Apollonius I learned freedom of will and undeviating steadiness of purpose, and to look to nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to be always the same in sharp pains, on the loss of a child, and in long illness, and to see clearly in a living example that the same man can be both most resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving instruction, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expounding philosophical principles as the smallest of his merits. And from him I learned how to receive from friends what are thought favors without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. 8. From Sextus, a benevolent disposition and the example of a family governed in a fatherly manner, and the idea of living conformably to nature, and gravity without affectation, and to look carefully after the interests of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons and those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery, and at the same time he was most highly venerated, and to be in the highest degree a master of himself and always cheerful, and to foresee without fear future events. 9. From Alexander the grammarian to refrain from fault-finding, and not in a reproachful way to chide those who uttered any barbarous or solecistic or strange-sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought to have been used in the way of answer or confirmation or joining in an inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word or by some other fit suggestion. 10. From Fronto I learned to observe what envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, and that generally those among us who are called patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. 11. from Alexander the Platonic, not frequently nor without necessity to say to anyone, or to write in a letter that I have no leisure, nor continually to excuse the neglect of duties required by our relation to those with whom we live, by alleging urgent occupations. 12. From Catullus, not to be indifferent when a friend finds fault, even if he should find fault without reason, but to try to restore him to his usual disposition, and to be ready to speak well of teachers, as it is reported of Domitius and Athenodotus, and to love my children truly. 13. From my brother Severus, to love my kin, and to love truth, and to love justice. And through him I learned to know Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, Brutus. And from him I received the idea of a polity in which there is the same law for all, a polity administered with regard to equal rights and equal freedom of speech, and the idea of a kingly government which respects most of all the freedom of the governed. I learned from him also consistency and undeviating steadiness in my regard for philosophy, and a disposition to do good, and to give to others readily, and to cherish good hopes, and to believe that I am loved by my friends. And in him I observed no concealment of his opinions with respect to those whom he condemned, and that his friends had no need to conjecture what he wished or did not wish, but it was quite plain. 14. From Maximus I learned self-government, and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances as well as in illness, and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. Whatever was the word which he uttered, all believed it was spoken as he thought, and he acted in a manner that showed he never had any design of deceiving, and he never was surprised nor in a hurry, and never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed nor dejected, nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation. Nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of beneficence, and was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood. And he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right, rather than of one who had been improved. I observed, too, that no man could ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or ever venture to think himself a better man. He had also the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. 15. From my father, gentleness and unchangeable resolution in judgments formed after due deliberation, and no vainglory in those things which men call honors, and a love of labor and perseverance, and a readiness to listen to those who had anything to propose for the common weal, and undeviating firmness in giving to every man according to his deserts, and a knowledge derived from experience of the occasions for vigorous action and for remission, and to have no taste for absurd fancies, and to be content on all occasions and cheerful, and to foresee things a long way off, and to take care of the smallest matters and not to neglect them, and to check immediately popular applause and flattery, and to be ever watchful over the things necessary for the administration of the empire, and to be a good manager of the expenditure, and patiently to endure the blame which he got for such conduct. And he was neither superstitious with respect to the gods, nor did he court men by gifts or by trying to please them or by flattering the populace, but sober in all things and everywhere observant of the right without superstition and without innovation. And he was not fond of change nor unsteady, but loved to stay in the same places and to do the same things. and after his paroxysms of headache he came immediately fresh and vigorous to his usual occupations. And he was very moderate in his use of the bath and of oil and of other things which belong to the care of the body. And he was not fond of being in company, nor yet uneasy in being alone. And he was ready to forgive, and never was unseasonably complacent. And he was able to govern both himself and others, and was always firm and never violent in his affections. And he had an ever-present regard for those who had true talent or learning or morality, and showed respect for all that was good. 16. To the gods I am indebted for having good grandfathers, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good associates, good kinsmen and friends, nearly everything good. And that I did not hurry myself into a marriage, and that I was obedient to those who had authority over me, and that I did not abuse my power over my servants and slaves, and that my governors, being men like myself, gladly accepted my guidance and did not oppose me, and that I had the good fortune to have by nature the power of not being offended with those whose tongues are ungracious or whose conduct is ill-mannered, and that when I became attached to philosophy I did not fall into the hands of any sophist, nor sat long poring over their books, and that I have preserved my youth, and that I have submitted myself to the authority of elders, and that I learned to know that I have need of correction and discipline, and that my body has held out so long in such a life, and that I never touched either Benedicta or Theodotus, though I was often impassioned, and that having fallen into fits of irritation with Rusticus, I never did anything violent against him, and that my mother, though she was destined to die young, yet spent her last years with me, and that whenever I wished to help any man in his need, I was never told that I had not the means to do it, and that to my wife such a woman was given as to make me happy, and that I had competent and good teachers for my children, and that dreams, when they did come, were not absurd nor useless, and that I had help in a way both divine and human when I cared to give attention to philosophy, and that I have not fallen into the hands of any sophist, and that my children were not born either deformed or stupid, and in short, that I owe all these blessings to the gods and to fortune. Thank you for watching.